Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Branding Like a Boss, a podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the industry's most influential brands and the talented minds behind them. I'm your host, Angela Pih, and today I'm joined by Dustin Hoxworth, founder, editor at large at Fat Nugs Magazine. Known for his authenticity and deep commitment to the cannabis culture, Dustin has cultivated a family of contributors who write not just about brands, but about what they truly love. His vision has made Fat Nugs a trusted voice within our industry, raw, real, and deeply connected to the community. So we're so excited to have you, Dustin. Welcome, 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 welcome.
Thank you.
So let's just dive right in.
Let's do it. Thanks for the intro, by the way.
I often feel that you don't need intros because everybody knows you.
Oh goodness, I don't know about that. Jesus, that's not
I see you everywhere.
that. I do tend to show up a lot online. Luckily, it's not all my fault. There are people that actually enjoy some of the content and stuff, so it gets shared and talked about. So I do tend to show up in places, and hopefully, I don't wear out my welcome.
No, not at all. You're very consistent on LinkedIn. You are showing up and supporting so much of the community. You're at events. I think you were in California recently, right?
Yep, we did the California Cannabis Awards. We did the Faces of Cannabis there, and then I did I presented the pre-roll winner this year, just like I did last year.
So did you have to smoke hundreds of pre-rolls?
No, I didn't get to judge. I don't really have the time to judge these days, but I do know lots of people, lots of the judges, and I wasn't surprised by the winner, which was Sonoma Hills Farms Pink Jesus Hash Hole.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
It was the best thing I smoked in California when I was out there. It's a pre-roll, and for me to say that it was the best thing I smoked is kind of odd to say, but it was.
Well, for sure, with Mike and Shauna and also Joyce, just the quality of the cultivation, beautiful strains, incredible integrity, and so much love that they put into their pre-rolls and their flower.
Yep, you can tell they care about what they do,
which is so much a heart of what we do, right?
It better be. It better be.
Well, it really shows, like, especially for you, your heart and soul and the purpose that you bring into the industry. And I've heard, as I was preparing for this conversation on the Cannabis Advocate podcast, you said that Fat Nugs is a global platform uniting cannabis enthusiast culture, community, and not just a publication. And I know we touched on it a little bit earlier on in our pre-show conversation, but how does that ethos really come to life in all that you do in your teams?
I think the ethos exists because it's based on who I am as a person and how I grew up and what I've been through in my life, and all of that has shaped, my attitudes towards society and the government and the people in charge. I'm sort of an eat the rich guy. That's who I've always been. And so that ethos really seeps into everything that we do here. It's very personal to all of us. So it's really based on, that ethos is really based on the years that we have spent around the plant. Several of us here are cultivators, award-winning cultivators. All of us here are weird, creative writers and musicians and stuff like that. So I think the ethos has really built itself based on my personality, what I've been through, and then the team and their connection to cannabis and plant medicines as well. So I think that's where that ethos really does come from.
It almost sounds kind of like the 70s vibe, breaking through.
Peace and love, right? That kind of stuff, almost your 60s and 70s. Well, yeah.
A lot of incredibly smart people came out of that wave, from music, culture, technology, and
cannabis.
Plant.
Like Dennis Perrone, Jack Herrera, right? Like those types of people, for sure. Brownie Mary. Those folks are very smart and in cannabis. And those have only been influences here, and they continue to be influences here.
That's right. The legacy that they left us and what we
100%.
carry forward. And
Yep.
so much of what we do every day, honing in on the purpose and kind of the wave that they created for us. I mean, for me, I've only been in cannabis just 6 years, but you and the team have been at it for much, much longer, but it inspired generations of us.
Advocacy and activism is where all of this stems from, right? That's cannabis. That's how and why it exists, and that lives here on a daily basis. I have one thing and one thing only that we focus on here, and it's the only goal that we have. It's the only written goal that we have. And that says the only thing that we do is to uplift the plant into its rightful place into society. That's it. So everything that we do, the ethos that's built here, the people that we work with, the brands, businesses, companies that we partner with, they all sort of fall in line with that. We put the plant first, and then hopefully everything falls, in line right behind the plant. And that's, where that ethos comes from, is activism and advocacy from the people that have been building this thing since 60s and 70s, if not prior to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have a personal story tied in with that, right?
I do. I have a very large military family, 22 family members that are either active or former military. And when my dad and my uncles came back from Vietnam, we had massive PTSD issues in my family. We had no idea what the hell that was back in the 70s and early 80s. PTSD didn't exist. It was called shell shocked. So the one thing that we did know and we did understand was that weed seemed to be the only thing that really helped. So that's what I remember from the earliest moments of my childhood, is my family getting together and smoking, family friends coming over and smoking. The kids were always around. It wasn't a big deal. Back in the 70s and 80s, we were playing outside. We didn't care. We didn't pay attention to what the adults were doing. So it was just a normal part of life. I also grew up with an indigenous stepfather for 9 years. So for half of my childhood, I was, I guess relatively aware of another culture, at least as much as a snotty 2-year-old to 11-year-old punk can be aware of another culture, which is probably not very much. But the significance of that was, that time in my life, he was also a consumer. So again, it was just around me all the time. So my early days of being around cannabis were all about normalization, medicine, even though I didn't understand any of that. All of that was heavily influenced upon me. I've been influenced by all of that stuff. So I've been around cannabis since basically the day that I was born. I've never gone a day without weed being in my life in some shape, form, or fashion. It's really weird to think about, because I just turned 50. And to think that I've been around this thing for 50 years, smelling it, talking about it, joking about it, laughing at my dad and my uncles who always smelled that way, right? It's just weird. And then going off to college and doing what I had to do to pay the bills there. And so it's just always been a part of who I am. And I think because of that, the ethos that I've built here with the magazine completely reflects all of that in the way that I grew up. So that's definitely where the ethos comes from, and the story behind the magazine.
Well, it's so integral to every aspect of your life, from when you
Yep.
were, from the day you were born,
Yep.
to what you do in your chosen, I don't want to say career. It's what you've chosen to create with your energy and with your time and with your focus.
Yeah, and it's definitely a career at this point, right?
Well, yeah. Once it becomes a business, it is a career.
Yeah, it's definitely turned into that. It wasn't that when I first started it, though. This was kind of created almost by accident. I saw some things that I didn't really like in the industry, made fun of it a little bit, and then after the all of that hoopla died down, I created Fat Nugs Magazine just out of spite, but it was I wanted to just talk to my network, my growing network, in a much more, I guess, broad sense, and do it in a way that was very visually fun, that pulled you in, like when you're scrolling, doom scrolling through LinkedIn or whatever. and you come up to something that I've created, I wanted you to stop and go, holy shit, that's fun. That's cool. What is that? And then at that point, I got you. I get to talk to you about, I tell you a cool story or talk to you about a brand or, whatever the case may be. So, yeah.
When was that? I don't think I even know when you started Fat Nugs.
So when I first started the publication, it was back it's only been about 3.5 years that the publication itself has really existed.
Quarterly, as a monthly, or
so every 2.5 months, we produce 5 print editions a year. So every 2.5 months or so. I would love to do more if I had the resources that I really would love to have here, that I need here. I could probably do 6 to 8 a year with no problem. We have so much content and so much writing, none of it AI, by the way. It's all actually written, real articles here. Our editorial standards are very, very high. This magazine has become something that I didn't think it would. And
now I have to ask.
Yeah.
What is it that you didn't think it would be?
So when I first started this, I was just posting fake covers, and it was to have conversations and laugh and have some fun and just do things on social media to grow my personal platform, my personal brand. That's what it was. And then all of a sudden, people were like, what you're doing is really cool. You should actually turn it into something real. And I pushed back and I was like, I don't know how to do any of that. I'm not a publisher. I'm a creative by nature. I've written and released 3 albums on my own. I play several different instruments. I do a little bit of painting. I'm always looking for a creative dump.
Yeah.
So it was by accident that the magazine came about. I did not expect it to do this at all, period. I didn't expect to have actual physical publication. I didn't expect to have writers here. None of it. It was just a moment in time that I was like, I'm going to post, and maybe and here we go. And all of a sudden, 3.5 years later, I believe I have the premier cannabis publication in the industry. We are the only nationally distributed cannabis publication in the industry. And it's very, very different than any other publication that's ever existed in this space. We're also the only publication that's ever sold into dispensaries. All publications give away their publications to dispensaries. Well, ours is high quality enough that that's just not the case. I'm able to sell into dispensaries because we do partnerships here. So between the platform and the publication itself, we've been able to build partnerships to actually sell into dispensaries. So we're doing a lot of things that I think have never really been done, but I don't think it's ever been a situation where anyone's created something like this so that it could be done. So I've created something by accident that has now turned into, I believe, a premier part of the industry overall.
That's so unusual because you're right. The publications that I'm aware of are made available free in dispensaries. So if you think about it from a value standpoint, when you pay for something, you value it differently from something that you're given for free.
100%. Nailed it.
And you're one of the rare publications where it's not really about buying an ad in a page. It's not tied into a content play that's going to play out over a number of months. It goes through a different type of selection process, right? Because it ties into the advocacy part of what you do. Yep. So how does that kind of play out in terms of the way you see Fat Nugs approach advocacy and still be editorial?
I don't think you could have one without the other here. The way that we approach our editorial, so we don't do advertorials here. We don't allow people to push.
No, like sponsored content or something.
Exactly. We don't do sponsored content here. You can't come to us and say, here's a few $1,000. Will you write about my brand or my company or interview my CEO? We don't do that here. we are advocates and activists first. So everything that comes out of here is authentic cannabis or plant medicines. It's also always positive, helpful, supportive of the industry, the community and culture side of the industry. And I do that on purpose as well.
That's true. I've
Because
never seen you guys write a teardown article.
bingo. That is thank you for saying that, because that ethos that is a part of what we do here is extremely important for several reasons. But the main one is we've been inundated for almost 100 years from mainstream media's bullshit. I'm the exact opposite of that. Not only am I independent, but I will push all positive stuff about cannabis because it's truth, not because I'm making things up or that, I'm trying to sway people's minds, so to speak. That happens automatically with what we're able to do here. But it's about being able to tell the story of cannabis in the way that cannabis deserves to be showcased. It's a beautiful plant that helps the planet, that helps our health, that provides food, warmth, shelter, and everything else that you can think of. So why the hell wouldn't I push it in a very positive light? That's just what we do and who I am. Plus, all of my experiences from my past when it comes to cannabis have also been positive. So I'd be lying if I'm trying to push negative things here. It just doesn't work. Even the companies and brands that I refuse to work with, and I refuse to work with anyone who has ever lobbied against home grow and caregiver rights. So that's essentially about 5 to 6, 7 companies.
Mm-hmm.
We won't have to name them here. We all know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't even mention them in a negative light. They don't need the air. Everything that we do here is to push cannabis forward, to uplift the plant into its rightful place into society, right?
Yep.
We can't do that by tearing down the industry.
No.
So we don't tear down the industry. Now, do we talk about things that need to be talked about? Yes. But they're in ways that if we point something out that's negative, that we don't like, and there's a shit ton of stuff that we can talk about that we don't like in this industry. I think we all know that. Sure. And there's probably more negative stuff that we can talk about than anything else that goes on in this industry sometimes.
Sure. Because
go ahead.
Not all the brands or companies who are in this industry are following in the wave of what you've just talked about.
100%. Yep. And so we don't need to point that stuff out. We really don't. I think there are plenty of people that are pointing all the negative things out, and the news side, so to speak, the news cycle of cannabis is very negative in nature. It really is. And it's what's happening here. And here's the ICE raids in California. And there's always someone screwing someone else in the industry and someone suing someone or whatever the case may be. And that's great. But we're not the news channel. We are here.
I also have never seen you guys do hypey articles either.
No, we allow the voice. So a big part of who we are is because I've always been very poor. I come from a very poor military family, and I take pride in that. I really do. It might be weird to say, but when I say eat the rich, I mean, I mean that shit. I'd be happy to, pull out the guillotine at times. And my guillotine, what I'm able to do is that I support small mom and pop equity, legacy, veteran, and women-owned cannabis businesses and voices here. I give voice, I give space, I give a platform to the smaller side, the medium side of this industry, because that's where most of us are, one. And two, most of those people have been the advocates, have been the consumers. They understand
the most amount of effort for the plant.
They're working their asses off to not only build their brand, but to push the positive aspects of cannabis. Yep. So I'm here to give them a platform. That's the voice that we want here. Those are the voices that deserve to be heard in this space. You may have a ton of money. You may be a celebrity. You may own a bunch of businesses, and you can buy all the media you want. But if you come here and you try that, I tell you to go fucking kick rocks. That's just not what we do. So our stories are not hype stories. They're stories about real people's lives. They're stories about the things that happen every day to all kinds of people. They're about brands, businesses, companies, and organizations that actually care to be in this space, and they're not here just to pull dollars from people. So it's a much broader sense of what cannabis is when you're here with us. It's not just advertising. It's not just editorial. It's not just photography. It's all these things that make up cannabis, and that make up cannabis in a very positive light.
Yeah. And just the quality of not just the writing, but the quality of the photography, the creative, the attention that you bring into that. When you're giving the mom and pop, the home grow, the single license operators a platform to be featured in such a beautiful way, it's not oftentimes that one, they can afford it, or two, they're part of a enjoyable experience when you're reading and integrating and experiencing the magazine.
You're making me smile here and touching on lots of stuff that is important to me. We don't charge people to feature them. We don't do the pay to play stuff here. I refuse to do the pay to play stuff here. I don't want to be bullied by cash. Cash has never ruled my life. I've always been poor, right? And so I get things done regardless of the resources that I do or don't have. So what that means is I want to be able to uplift as many voices and people and their brands and their businesses as I humanly possibly can, because they deserve it. And I don't go to them and go, I'm going to write this article or I featured you here. We're actually working on something together right now, right? I didn't come to you and go, hey, I'm going to need $3,000 to do this feature on you. That is the biggest load of shit I have ever heard. And the reason I say that, and I know that people, do pay to play stuff in here so that they can afford to have their lives, right? And make money. And I get that. And we need revenue here too. But that money controls the words that come out of your mouth and the ink that is on the paper. And I can't deal with that. It's not something I have a problem with authority. I've always had a problem with authority, and that's just who I am. And authority always has money and backing and power. And
that's the power and influence you have when you have means, right? Because people say, money doesn't make you happy, but it gives you choices.
Yeah, it gives you power. It gives you a voice. And I don't subscribe to that at all. Period. I don't participate in it. Money makes life easier. And money, when you see money come into this space, they have an easier time normally in being able to do. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be successful, but they have an easier time in building their brand and bringing the people in and hiring people, that they need to build the brand properly, to scale and all of that stuff, and to get their tech stack, right? Get their tech stack in place and all of that stuff. And I don't do any of that. I've never done any of that.
It's so true. I've walked away from six-figure salaries because of lack of alignment.
Yep. I say no to people quite a bit.
Well, that's good, because it maintains who you are and what you've created for the magazine, and also your team. I mean, talk to us about your team.
I'm obviously biased in this, but I think
should be.
I believe we have the best group of creative individuals that I've ever seen put together in one place. And I mean that. Now, I look at, we have one of our partners is Embark, and I look at Embark as sort of oh my gosh, I wish I could attain, their level of marketing and creativeness and stuff like that. And they have an amazing team.
They do.
But I think when you look at the overall resources that we don't have and the team that we still have here, what that means is that we've built something that people connect to and connect with in a very personal way, and they want to be a part of that. So what you've got here as a team is a collection of just the most passionate, loving, creative weirdos that you could ever want to be around. That's who the team is. Jessica, our editor-in-chief, is a no bullshit kind of person. We are totally in alignment on editorial most of the time. She's brought a level of professionalism here that we've never had before. She's brought a level of consistency we've never had before. She makes all the difference when it comes to all of our editorial, and she's in control of all the editorial, not me. Now, I obviously have my say in things, right? And I also do my editing.
You guys get together and talk about, you know, what you're going to put in the magazine, what the creative process.
Yeah.
You've got maybe 5 or 6 people who are part of the team, the core team.
14.
No, really? That's amazing.
That includes 4 photographers as well. And the way that we sort of our team is built here is really we're all kind of volunteer. We're all 1099s. We're all sort of volunteers until we go to print, and hopefully there's some cash left over for us, right? That's kind of how we've been operating for the past few years. Now that's starting to change because of our partnerships. The more we grow, revenues coming in and all of that kind of stuff. But it's okay, what was the question?
14 of you.
Oh, yeah, 14 of us.
And how often do you get together?
There we go. That was the question. We meet every Tuesday, and we meet all of us meet for an hour, and we have discussions across the board about anything and everything that's going on. Everybody gets a chance to, say their piece on those calls. And then I also meet with, the leadership team here as well on a regular basis. We just had a call yesterday where we talk about like the books that we need to be reading to learn more. As a matter of fact, Jessica, that's one of the things that she brought was a sense of we need to better our leadership capabilities here to make sure that the team is happy, we're healthy, we're all moving in the same direction, those types of things. So our team is absolutely phenomenal. They're the key to why this thing works the way that it works. I could never do all this work by myself. Obviously, I think we all know that. And I do believe that we have at this moment, the team that we have between our 4 photographers who you mentioned, we have some of the most absolute gorgeous visual aspect of what we do here is a very big thing because I want to get your attention. There's 1,000 things trying to pull our attention away these days in every minute of the day. And if you see our magazine, whether it's on the front cover or on the back cover laying around somewhere, I want you to go, holy shit, what is that? I want to look at it. And because of the team, we're able to do that.
Yeah,
and
I love the cover for the technology issue. It stopped me.
Which one?
The technology issue, the one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was gorgeous.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, the tech issue that came out. That was our first tech issue we've ever done. It came out last year, right around MJ Biz.
Yeah, and it was just beautiful because there was a human quality to a very non-human subject matter.
Yeah. And I that was one of the first times, if I'm not mistaken, that I allowed brands or businesses that were a part of the edition to actually, I think it was the second time I did this, to have some editorial say in their advertising, so to speak. But it was all around the educational side of the industry and what they're doing.
Add value.
Yes, it's about adding value, not advertising. And I tell everybody that is like, if I ever give you an opportunity to have editorial inside of the print, it's not editorial. Yeah, editorial, not that lives inside the print. It will never be advertorial in nature. It needs to be educational. We need to have fun reading it. And that's what we're trying to do. We do edutainment here, education and entertainment. So it's important for me to be able to keep that standard. And in the tech edition, that was one of the things I was able to do was to give extra voice to the tech side of the industry that wanted to tell us something that important and educate us in some way.
So there's so much. I mean, at that time, I was still with a company that provides hardware for the industry. There was a safety part of that, about health and wellness tied into technology and how integral technology is and specifically hardware. So there's a value to that as part of the storytelling. There's a value to that to your audience.
It's authentic, right? It's an authentic part of this process and part of cannabis. We need to be able to tell those stories and educate. Otherwise, it just becomes a commodity.
Well, going back to your point about reading, what are you doing to be able to be a better leader, to be more conversant. Maybe that's an idea of like a Fat Nugs reading list. I would subscribe to that one.
That's a great idea. So reading books, and we had, I think we had a little bit of a conversation around this online at some point, like the four agreements. I'm looking at my
Oh,
books right now.
yes.
That book was one of those like light on moments, like, oh, all this makes so much sense. And if I, focus on some of this stuff like I know I should be, it actually will help me in my day-to-day processes. It will help me build my team. It will help me treat people better. It will help me treat myself better, talk to myself in different and better ways.
Think about, don't make any assumptions. I mean, that in and of itself
Huge.
just clears so much
So
of
that,
the
and then the one that really stuck with me was, um, the things that people say to you, the negative things and stuff. It's all about them, right?
that's
It has nothing to do with you. It's all about how they feel, not you. It has nothing to do with you. And I obviously, and throughout my life, I've never really given a shit. Let's just say that. I've always been like a little skater punk when I was a kid, or I've been in bands, and I've always been in, sort of a subculture or anti things in my life. That's just who I've been. So, having the opportunity to learn from books that I probably should have read a long time ago, while I'm building this magazine, like Atomic Habits, like the Four Assessments. There are other books that we're working on, bringing in here as well. That has made a big difference in, believe it or not, in the way that I'm able to lead this team. I'm not a natural leader, Angela. I'm someone who I'm relatively introverted, if you can believe that.
no.
But I know, but I'm a Leo as well. So the spotlight is okay, but it's not. It's one of
Well,
those
at your own terms.
on my. You nailed it. It has to be on my own terms. There you go. And then I'm comfortable in that moment, right?
Yep.
So I think it's important. When you ask me how do I improve my leadership or how do I go about doing that, it's practice, because I'm not the natural leader. Don't get me wrong. I played college volleyball and I was the team captain after the first year that I walked onto the team. So there's something going on there that I may not accept about myself that other people might see that I don't, and that's fine. I'm cool with that, but I don't feel like I'm your standard CEO. Let's just say that.
Well, you
Um,
got the height for it.
yeah,
I
there
think
you go.
to be a standard CEO, you kind of have to be 6 feet plus. I read somewhere years and years ago that the height of a CEO actually impacts on their direct compensation for every inch. It's crazy. It's very sort of like primitive in terms of our approach to how we choose leaders, and height has a huge advantage.
That's interesting. So stature based.
Very much so, but this is primitive, right? This goes
Yeah.
back to our,
Yeah.
early development, that we look to somebody who's tall as a leader
Yes.
to have the answers, to give
Yep.
us vision.
Yeah. And that's definitely not how I see leadership at all. Leadership is how someone makes me feel. I think that's sort of the crux of it, where when you're speaking to your employees or your team members or your peers, the way that you make them feel is what they're going to remember and how they're going to be motivated.
True.
So, making sure that people know that they're doing an excellent job, that they're cared for, right? We appreciate and we're grateful, and those types of things. I lead with empathy and compassion first. Now, a lot of that empathy and compassion sometimes turns into fiery stuff about other people that are causing issues in the world, and other things that we advocate and we're activists for. But all of that is really built around the way that I grew up being poor and seeing the world for what it really is and the harshness in which we experience it, especially poor people. So that drove a lot of empathy and compassion into who I am, even though again, sometimes I'm, fiery and Um, I don't know, send out probably some hateful stuff every now and then, some hateful vibes, I guess. Trying to hold power to, to
Truth to
someone
tell,
holding.
yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, but empathy and compassion, and then being able to learn from my peers, from people like you, from Bill and Jeff, from Seth Yakutin, from several different people in the industry who go about things in a very professional way, but care. They, people like you actually give a shit about the success of others. I care about the success of not only my team, but the people around us and a part of this magazine. So I think a lot of the learning on how to be a good leader or how I better my leadership is through experience, trial and error, listening, empathy, and compassion, and then just being open to having to change things and not being rigid. Um,
Yeah.
I think all of that was sort of instilled in me by the things that I had to go through and
Because you've had life
overcome.
experiences.
Yeah,
And your team members, your group, your people, they have life experiences. And with this industry, it brings on a lot of adversity and a lot of challenges. We
every day.
spoke a lot about the great things and the energy and the passion that we have within the industry, but there must have been some obstacles. Like what are some of the things that have happened over the last 3 years that were um, you know, challenging, but maybe, could have been extinction events?
Oh yeah, people coming and going because we don't have any money. People getting pissed about being here, and even though me being open and transparent about everything going on, the personnel aspect, I think of any job or any business that you're building is probably the hardest part in working with and working through personal problems that people have, and making sure that those things are being um, helped or they're being supported. That is very hard to do. It's hard to deal with people's personal stuff. It's very
Yeah.
difficult to run a business, especially where you have no real revenue on a regular basis and you don't have a sack of money behind you to pay people lots of money to sort of go, okay, you've got to set that aside and let's get the job done, right? That's not
Mhm.
how things work. So that's been a very difficult hurdle at times. But honestly, the biggest hurdle is what I just mentioned, which is the money aspect, because what that does is make you find ways around being able to pay for stuff. You have to come up with creative solutions to solve all of your problems. And
Yeah,
if you can't,
an environment of scarcity.
yes. And even though I don't operate from a scarcity mindset, that's just not what I do. But I also don't operate from an abundance mindset either. I think there has to be a balance there. And I walk that line, as much as I can. I think it's, the money aspect is something that controls every piece of this. Um, you know, if we don't have money, I wouldn't have been able to get a new website, right? Our old website was a huge hindrance to what it is that we were trying to build here.
Yeah,
That was a
beautiful
huge,
website. Puff
thank you.
Creative did a great job.
They did.
Shout out to
Uh,
John and the team.
Absolutely. John's been a partner here now for, I guess, about 8 months or so. I've been extremely lucky to have them here with us. But that was another hurdle. It was, the business aspect just from the website itself. That was a massive hurdle for us to overcome. And it took 3 years to overcome that. 3 years because we didn't have any money. That's a long time to run on a shitty website while you're building a platform that now has become as big as it has. So the hurdles are all day, every day, but they're all usually based on the lack of revenue, the lack of money, the lack of, having a stash that we can dip into anytime that we need to help solve a problem. So
Well, that brings on an obvious question, right? So, scarcity. So, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do then?
I've thought about this actually, and I think my answer is probably really simple. Um, I would be able to build, if I still wanted to build this platform, right? If I had all the money in the world, if I still wanted to, and I've been asked this before, as in, if you knew what you would have been doing over the past 3.5 years and how much you've gone through, would you have done it? And the
Mhm.
answer is no. The answer is unequivocally no, which is kind of weird to say. Because this wasn't like a dream of mine, like I didn't have this in mind. This was, I just wanted to be a part of cannabis and I'm creative and this is what happened, right? So
Yeah,
it just,
this
it
was
just
your poking at something that you saw as being very inflated.
yeah, it needed, there needed to be something different. And I was the person that was going to bring something different because of just the natural part of who I am and what I wanted to do and the creative side and the means that I had. And I was able to create some stuff. And now here we are. But if I had all the money in the world and I still wanted to do this, which at this point, I think I still would, which is good.
You
um,
wanna, like, go on the road and be a rock star?
yeah, that would be fun. And I could do that. That would be really great. But I think what I would do is be able to spread this publication in every corner of the world, and bring in the people and pay people what they truly deserve in this space. Oh my God, that is a dream of mine to where I could have full-time W-2 employees where this is what we do and that is it. And because all of us here have multiple jobs as well, people don't realize that while I'm also putting in 12 hours a day here 6 days a week, I'm also doing things on the side so that I can, truly afford to do this magazine. It's still in a place where having to, 14 people to pay is no joke,
No.
right? So it's not like there's any money left over. But having that money, having all the money and resources in the world means I could bring in the people that really deserve, not that we don't have that now because we do, but the people that are here, they deserve to be paid. And I would be able to do that and provide for people's lifestyles while they're at a cannabis publication where they get to have fun, enjoy their everyday work with some of the greatest minds in the industry, work around people that they love and they want to be working with. So it's, I think all the money and resources, I think small sometimes because I've never had those resources before. So I think I would still keep that mindset where the the storytelling, the authentic journalism, the art and photography mean everything, and I would just make it better. I could just
Mm,
do it better, and I could bring the satisfaction of paying people what they deserve here. I think that's like the simplest thing that I could do. Otherwise, I'd buy a house somewhere and disappear on an island.
well, that that's beautiful. That's beautiful, and it really juxtaposes some of the experiences I've had within the industry where we're taking a meeting with a group of people who flew in on their private jet. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Woof.
kind of go, oh,
Yeah. And look, I wish we could all fly on private jets. Cool,
but
you know?
I don't see that as being what it's all about. And it's
No,
certainly not why I'm here. You know,
no.
I
And
came
if it
in,
is, you're losing.
I came in from big fashion and beauty and agencies where doing what I do is actually a lot easier.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I mean, there's resources behind it.
Yeah, that's right. There's teams, there's infrastructure, there's that, bag of cash back there,
Yeah,
if,
exactly. And
but that's not why I'm here.
yeah, you're if it was, you would be in trouble and you would be losing because that's not what happens in this space. That no one comes in here, basically you can spend 5 million to make a million, right? Or spend 5 million to lose 4 million of it or whatever the case may be. It's
Yeah.
just one of those things that money is not the driver in this situation. If it is and you're in this industry, you're in the wrong industry.
Amen. Now, at the end of every episode, we always ask the guest, if you had a cannabis themed superhero alter ego, what would it be? Capes, costumes, invisibility cloaks.
So it would be a combination of probably two. superheroes or whatever you want to call them. So Professor Xavier from X-Men, who, the big reason for that is because I could control people's thoughts in the way that they think about cannabis.
Yeah.
And remove the brainwashing that all of us receive from mainstream media from the moment that we're born. I think that's would be a really cool thing to be able to have, is to remove that brainwashing that we get. And then the other one that I would combine that with is Green Lantern.
Oh,
Walk around and make the world green with some cool shit in a ring. I mean, that would be great. Let everybody smoke OG Kush and sour diesel and some of the
while changing their minds.
Yep, exactly.
And
So,
perception.
yep. So I think the combination of those two would be really cool.
Well, cool. Well, if I have a wand and we had this within the cannabis industry, I would put you as, sexiest man alive in cannabis.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. I don't believe that for a second, but I would take it.
I'll take it. The height, the volleyball imagery. Absolutely.
Hell yeah. I love it. Oh yeah. I did share one photo from me playing volleyball in college one time, I think.
All right. Right. No thirst trap photos on LinkedIn. Okay.
The Faces of Cannabis, they do that for me. Those photos that we come up with.
You have to resurface it then.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, thank you so much for being part of this program. And I learned a lot. I know our audience is going to be able to get so much from the integrity and the purpose and the passion that you bring into everything that you do. And you taught us a lot about, sticking with your North Star.
Thank you for that. And I hope people do really kind of get the idea of what we're doing here, how we're trying to build stuff, and, what is important in this space. We do our best to focus on that. And I think we do a pretty good job of it. So I hope people, that's what they pull from Fat Nugs Magazine, is that you get a bunch of authentic, really cool stuff, excellent things to look at, beautiful things to read. And you get to meet people and learn about things that you wouldn't be able to anywhere else. So I hope that we're doing a good job with, truly representing cannabis.
You are.
To be.
You are. And as audience of one, absolutely.
Thank you. I'll take it. I'll take it all day.
Thank you.